reintroduce yourself to the people because if they don't know you by now, they're just somewhere in the bushes. But how's it going with you? And after you answer that, what is going on with Ukraine now?
Well, I'm doing great. I mean, things are going well. I'm actually leaving tomorrow for a trip to Russia, where my book has been published there, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to go and do a book tour that's not just about promoting the book, but promoting better relations between the United States and Russia. So hopefully, it will be a good trip from that perspective. So I'm quite excited. I haven't been there since 1991, so I think things have changed quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting.
We hope that you're going to be blessed and safe, though.
Well, I hope that every trip I take. There's always risks when you start journeys of significance. They're significant because they're difficult. If they weren't difficult, everybody'd be doing them, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But so it'll be good. But I have a positive outlook and a positive energy, and so I'm very optimistic. It's being done in the context of a couple of things. One, disarmament. You said to briefly introduce myself, but I spent a lot of my life involved in disarmament. I was a Marine Corps officer. I actually, when I was first in the Soviet Union or Russia back in 1988, it was to implement an arms control treaty, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, the first ever arms elimination treaty. We got rid of two categories of nuclear weapons, intermediate range missiles, short range missiles. It's the first time that had ever been done. And that's what I wrote my book about, the disarmament at the time of perestroika. That's the book that was published in Russia. And so it'd be very good to go over there and talk about this, because that was a time of, in the 1980s, we almost were in nuclear war. It's actually worse than the situation we face today. A lot of people go, well, how could that be? Trust me, it was. And yet we use the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty as a vehicle to bring our two nations together in common purpose, not to fight one another, but to work on how to prevent wars, how to eliminate the threat of nuclear weapons. And for a brief shining moment, it worked. And I'd like to see if we could recapture that spirit. So that's why I'm excited to go over to Russia and talk about this book and see what their feelings are, then bring that message back here to the United States, see if I can help rekindle the concept of, rather than being enemies of Russia, why can't we be friends with Russia? I also spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I fought in the Gulf War, and my main job there was hunting down Scud missiles before they can be fired against Israel or Saudi Arabia. And then when the war ended, I spent 7 years as a UN weapons inspector in Iraq, overseeing the disarmament of their programs. I resigned because in opposition to U.S. policy that wasn't about disarmament, but about getting rid of Saddam Hussein. And I've been speaking out ever since, trying to inject some fact-based truth into a debate that is otherwise colored by misrepresentation, outright lies, distortions, and everything else that comes from just not telling the truth. And that's where we are today. That's where I'm at. You asked about Ukraine. Just briefly speaking, Russia's winning, Ukraine's losing. It's a horrible human cost. There's nothing that Ukraine or NATO can do to change this outcome. The question now is, how do we want it to end? Will we accept the fact that Russia has beaten us and seek to work with Russia to come up with a way to terminate this tension? Or are we going to be upset that a war that we started didn't finish the way we wanted and continue to escalate, leading back to the potential of nuclear war, which brings me back to my book and why it's so important to be doing this tour in Russia right now. Because if the average American doesn't know it, you're literally 1 millisecond away from dying. Right now, as we speak, we may not finish this podcast. We probably will. But I'm just saying that there's a potential at any moment right now for either the United States or Russia to miscalculate, to make a mistake. And that mistake could manifest itself in the use of a nuclear weapon. And once that happens, the world ends about 40 minutes later. So that's why this tour is important. That's why the message of peace is important. And that's why I'm going to undertake a journey that many people are telling me, don't do it. But if I don't do it, who will? And if nobody does it, how are we going to solve this problem? So here we are.